Be here now. Just be here now.
Welcome to the Krishna Das Pilgrim Heart Hour. In this podcast, Krishna Das shares his warm-hearted and down-to-earth path to the divine. If you are interested in supporting Krishna Das's podcast, please go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/KD.
Pranavam Pavanakuma Kalabana Pavaka Gyanagan Jasu Hrdadayaga Vasiram Sarachabadhar Atulita Baladhama Himmashala Badeham Nurjavarna Krishan Jnani Nama Graganyam Sakala Guna Nidhan Vanaranam Madhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Namami Koshpadi Kritavarisham Mashiki Krita Rakshasam Ramayana Mahamalaratnam Vande Nilatmajam Anjananandaram Viram Janaki Shokanashanam Kapisamakshahantar Vande Lanka Vankaram Langa Sindhu Salilam Salilam Yashokavahi Janakatma Jaya Adartane Dadahalanka Amamitam Pranjaliranjanem Manojavam Maruttatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Vardashtam Vathatmajam Vanarutamukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhe Anjaneya Matipatkalan Kanchanadrikamaneya Vigraham Parijata Taramura Vasanam Bhavehami Pavamananandanam Yatra Yatra Raghunath Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjali Vashpavari Paripurna Lochanam Martinamat Rakshasantakam Bolo Bhajaranga Bale Hanuman Ki Jai. The Tulsidas version of the Ramayana is a story within a story within a story. And it starts out with Shiva and Parvati sitting up on Mount Kailash, hanging out. And Shiva comes out of Samadhi. And as he comes out of Samadhi, he mutters, as they say, Ram, 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 Ram. So, Parvati, a question arises in her mind. And she says to Shiva, she said, "Oh, dear husband, what is this name that whose name is it that you speak when you come out of Samadhi?" So, from that question, the whole story of the Ramayana unfolds as Shiva answers her. And so, I won't get into it now, but it's the point I was trying to make is that, as they say, Shiva always remember Ram. And Ram was always remembering Shiva, remembering in the sense of meditating on, holding in their hearts. And one of the things that happens is Shiva says to Parvati, she says, "You know, my beloved Ram is going to do a big leela down there on earth, and I'm going to go down and help out." And Parvati says, "Wait a minute, you're going to leave me?" And he says, "No, sweetie, I'm not going to leave you. I'm just going to send my energy down to help Ram." And he sends his energy through the wind god. And the wind god transmits that energy to Anjani, Hanuman's mother, who gives birth to Hanuman. And Hanuman is considered to be an aspect, a form of Shiva, actually. The 11th Rudra. And it has a very wrathful face because Hanumanji takes form to help Ram destroy the negativity in the world. So that you have to be wrathful to destroy that. So So if we're going to sing to Ram, let's imagine that we are Shiva, singing to our beloved. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Sita Ram 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Ram Rama Ram Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Rama Rama Ram Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Rama Rama Ram 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 Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama Rama Ram Sita Rama Rama Ram Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama Rama Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai 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 Ram Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama Rama Ram Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram Sita Ram Sita Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai 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 Ram Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 So many years ago, in the, must have been in the 80s. Yeah, I think it was. I was in India and with some other Western devotees, and we went to Benares with Mr. and Mrs. Tewari, or maybe just Mr. Tewari. And Benares is an incredible city. It's right on the banks of the Gange. And all the whole, on the, I guess it's the western bank, it's ashram after ashram and temple after temple, and they have the steps, the ghats, going down to the water. And every morning people come down and take their bath in the Gange, and in the evening, and the sun sets and the sun rises are so extraordinary. And one thing you can do is you go out on a boat, a rowboat, and the boatman rows you down the river as the sun's setting and golden color. It's just so beautiful. So one time we were out there in one of these boats, and it was extraordinary quiet. Just the atmosphere was so charged and sweet and open, and I noticed these two little rowboats coming towards us. Now that there's these priests who have these little boats, and if you go out on a boat, they come rowing out after you, so they can get some money for doing like a little puja in the middle of the river. So they were coming towards us. There were two of them. And I thought, oh, God, all right, we'll have to deal with these guys. So they both had boom boxes on their little boats, their little rowboats, and they're frantically rowing towards us, getting closer and closer, and we started hearing music from their boom boxes. They got really close, and we could hear, they were playing me. They were playing me. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to sink the boats in the middle of the river. But anyhow, here's what they were playing. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har 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 Mahadev Shambho. Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har 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 Mahadev Shambho Har 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 Mahadev Shambho. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Har Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Bam Bam Mahadev Shambho Har Bam Bam Mahadev Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange. Har Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Har 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 Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Hara 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 Mahadeva Shambho Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanath Gange Living in India with Maharaj-ji, we began to absorb the way the devotees related to him, how they saw him. And most of the devotees saw him as Hanuman, as an incarnation of Hanuman himself. And that's how and why we learned the Hanuman Chalisa, and he always had Ramcharitamanas recited every Tuesday, usually just Sundarakand, the part of the beautiful chapter is called about Hanuman. But some of the old devotees some of those old devotees that were really unusual, they seemed to have something going on, you know. They worshipped him as Shiva. And it was quite amazing. For instance, Mr. Tewari, he used to do Shiva pujas that lasted 3 or 4 hours. And he had taken a vow. His puja guru, who was also a very great saint, who taught him all the pujas, told him that once he sits down to start his puja, he cannot get up until he finishes. He has to complete it no matter what's happening. And he kept that vow his whole life. He told me one time he was walking with Maharaj-ji in Lucknow, near one of the temples, near where later one of the Hanuman temples was built. But in those days there was just a small little temple by the river. And they were walking by the river, and Maharaj-ji says, okay, you sit down, you do your puja, because it was Monday, and I guess he did his Shiva puja every Monday. So Tewari said, no, I won't do that. I said, no, you sit down and do your puja. And Tewari said, no, I won't do that. Maharaj says, I'm telling you to do that. Why won't you do that? Because the minute I sit down, and you know, once I sit down, I have to finish the whole 3-4 hours. You know, the minute I sit down, you'll run away and leave me here alone. And Maharaj-ji laughed and he said, Nina, I won't do that, I won't do that. And Tewari said, I don't believe you, you will. The minute I sit down, you'll run away. So he made Maharaj-ji hold his ears, which is like cross my heart, hope to die, hold his ears and promise that he wouldn't run away. So Tewari sits down, and Maharaj-ji sits in front of him, and he begins to do these mantras to Shiva. Incredible mantras and Shiva puja. And Maharaj-ji sat there like a stone for 4 hours. And the minute Tewari finished his last Om, Maharaj-ji jumps up and says, you wicked guy, keeping me here like this, I have work to do. And he ran away, you know. But I traveled all over India with Tewari. And if we were just driving along the road and he saw a Shiva temple and off the road, we would stop the car and he'd go in and he'd sit down, and it could be hours until he got up, and I'd have to sit there. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, one time we went into this little temple, a little Shiva Ling temple, and the floor was covered with water. There were like 3 or 4 inches of dirty, yucky, slimy water with all these creepy crawlers floating around in it. Tewari gets down and he bows down to the lingam and he pranams, and then he sits down and he starts to do puja. And I had to get in there in that water. It was so horrible. So horrible. But extraordinary. So there was another devotee of Maharaj-ji's named, he was from Aligarh. And he was very poor man, simple, little gruff. Vishwambhar was his name. And he would come to the temple, to Kenchi from Aligarh, which is down on the plains. He'd come to the temple. And he'd bring all the accoutrements for puja, you know, the plate and the little lamp and the wicks and to do Aarti. And he would stand outside of Maharaj-ji's door waiting. And he might wait for hours. He would just stand there. And Maharaj-ji would be inside and saying, oh, Vishwambhar's out there. I don't want to go. He's going to do puja, you know, he'll be... So finally he would come out and Vishwambhar would start to wave the lights, and he'd start to do his puja. And at the end of his puja, he would sing this Shiva Aarti. And I don't know the whole Aarti, but I know just a few lines from it. And he would sing and he'd sing and he'd sing, and he would just go into samadhi, and he would stand there like in absolute bliss. It was so extraordinary. This is how we learned about devotion. We saw it with our own eyes. We saw it, we experienced it, we were right there. We saw how real it is. We absorbed. It was just extraordinary. And then he would come down in a samadhi, he'd be whacked out of his mind, And he'd be walking around, he'd look at the Westerners, and he'd say, "Where are you people from? Which heaven world are you from? You are gods, you've incarnated here on earth, to be with Maharaj-ji." He was completely nuts, but it was so great, so much juice. So, this is a little bit of that type, that kind of Aarti that he used to sing. Sorry, allergy season has arrived here. It's the same melody as Jaya Shiva Omkara, as Jaya Jagadisha Hare. The words are Jaya Shiva Omkara, Hara 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 Mahadev. Om Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara Hara Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Hara Hara Mahadev, Jaya Hara Hara Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev. Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev, Jaya Hara 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 Mahadev, Om Jai Shiva Omkara, Jaya Hara Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara Hara Hara